Well, thank you very much for that introduction. And I did talk to a player from San Diego yesterday afternoon for about 45 minutes. I hadn't talked to him for about 5 or 6 years, and we got to talking and telling stories. But it's fun. If you're going to be a coach, the rewarding times really aren't out on the field; they're later on. And some of you asked that question of me: what are the thrills that you have? And to age myself a little bit, he's got one that's 20, one that's 18, just going to college, and then he got a high school. So you know they keep growing, and so questions come up, and it's interesting. But he did say something, and I'll share it with you. And I'm going to share quite a few things with you. And what I don't want you to do today, please don't do this. You said, well, he's standing up there bragging about himself. They asked me to share my story, okay, and what I think are important steps towards your journey towards achieving. So I'm going to talk about myself a little bit, but don't take it. I don't do this all the time. I promise you that. But he did tell me. He said if his son's going to the University of New Mexico, he got a scholarship there. He said, but if you had been still at Texas A&M, I would have sent him to coach to play for you because I wanted him to play for you. So that was really a real good feel. And you get those a little bit more from the guys after they leave. You don't get it when you tell them, you know, you're not playing today. You know, so it's interesting. I'm real quick. I'll tell you a little bit. We're getting ready. I know we got football season, Johnny football. We got a great football team, and I love college football. But the playoffs are coming. October is coming, and in baseball, that's the best time to watch it. Okay, so I'm going to just share. If you're watching it and you want to impress somebody, and you may know a lot about baseball, but I'm going to give you just a few more tips about baseball, and then I'm going to get on with what I'm supposed to talk about. But just some ins and outs of the game, so you can kind of impress that person you're sitting next to them, like, well, yeah, this is what they're doing. Got 9 guys in and 9 guys out. The guys that are in are trying to stay in so they don't have to go out, and the guys who are out are trying to get the guys that are in out. Now, the first guy that's in, he goes out, and if he makes it out, he comes in. The second guy that's in, he goes out, and if he makes it out, he comes in. The third guy that's in, he goes out, and if he makes it out, he comes in. Then his team, which is in, they go out, and the team that's out comes in, which means the team that was in is now out, and they're trying to get the team that was out that's in out. If they go in and out 9 times, and the score's tied, it goes into extra innings. So the first team that's in, they get to bat first in the extra inning. And so the first guy goes in, he goes out. If he makes it out, he comes in. Second guy that's in, he goes out. And if he makes it out, he comes in. The third guy that's in, he goes out. And if he makes it out, he has to come in. Then his team, which is in, goes out, and the team that's out comes in, which again means the team that was in is now out, and they're trying to get the team that was out that's in out. Bottom half of the 10th inning, this is as far as this game goes. And this game is at Olson Field. And the Aggies get last bats. So the first 2 guys, if they go in and they make it out, they got to come in. The third guy that's in, he knows if he goes out and he makes it out, he's got to come in. His team, which is in, gets to go out, and the team that's out comes in. So the third guy that's in doesn't want to make third out. So the third guy, one of our Aggies, he goes out and he knocks the ball out, and he rounds all the bases. He comes in. The Aggies come out, and they put him on the shoulders. They carry him in. That's the ins and outs of baseball. So you know all about October. You're ready for October. My desire, one of my desires today, is to talk to you. I don't want to speak or teach. I want to just talk to you about some experiences, some observations, and things that happened to me. The time restraints are unbelievable for me to get into too much. I will stay afterwards if you have questions. I'll be happy to do that. But here's the deal. I remember, and I'm 68 years old, because you're going to try to figure that out when I start giving you some dates of places I've been. So you don't have to do the math. I'm 68. But I remember being in your position. I've talked to a few of you already, but I know that you don't know for sure what you're going to be doing. You got some plans, and you're kind of funneling towards one direction, but it's still unclear. And I was exactly the same. I got a master's degree, and I was, I thought, well, I got to get this thing figured out, so I started moving towards that. But I didn't know, and you may not know. What I tried to do is reach towards things I thought I could do well. And that's what made me a coach. I loved athletics, so I said I'm going to start moving in that direction. But I also could write pretty good. I won some awards for writing, so I said, well, maybe I'll be a sports journalist, but it's going to be in athletics. So I didn't know. But what I want to do is tell you that I am really, and you'll see this, I'm a pretty ordinary guy, okay? So I don't have a lot of special stuff. I've kind of acquired some talents that I think just, they happen if you have a passion for what you're doing. But I want you to know that there is a whole lot more to you than what you think. that each one of you, unconsciously, subconsciously, you've got some restrictions and boundaries about what you think you can do and what you can't do. Or, you know, you may say, hey, I could never be the coach of the USA baseball team, or I could never be the chairman of a national board of 6,000 people. And I was the same way. But I'm going to say there's more there, and I'm going to give you some information I think that might be helpful to you as you reach out and try to figure out this puzzle. If I were going to say that I could do things well, one of the things I think I've acquired somehow, I can read people pretty good, and I can read situations pretty good, okay? And I say that because you think, well, that's logical. Everybody should be able to. Everybody can't do that. And it surprised me. They didn't have a talent for it. And I think I can do that fairly well. I think I'm fairly good at seeing the big picture. And sometimes we just see we stumble around there in the trees and we forget the big picture. We lose track of it, okay? And that happens. And I'm going to share a few things that how it can happen. So I think those things are pretty good. And I'm a real organized guy. So I can kind of see things in my mind. I can visualize how things should be organized, how we can get to and become an achiever, okay? Now you say, man, he is really going off on himself. I'm just sharing that. Those were some things. Now anybody can study baseball and learn all the fundamentals of baseball. A lot of people don't. They're lazy. They're lazy. And same thing, the field of study you want to be in. There'll be people that take shortcuts that are okay with being average. And thank heavens there's people out there who want to be average. You know, and most of the world's made up of average people. And that's good for the people that want to be achievers, okay? So if you want to be an achiever, it's available to you. It's available to you. Now, you don't have to win. You know, people say, well, you're a coach, man. All you talk about is win, win, win. I don't talk about winning. I talk about the will to win. So winning's not what's important. The will to win is what's important. And so if you want to have a good life, man, I'm going to say you ought to go try to be an achiever. You ought to step out there and see what happens to you and get the full value of life and what's going on. One thing, let me say this to you. One of the things I was born with this. It was in my home. I'm a problem solver, okay? And I counterbalance problem solver with fault finder, okay? So see, I didn't inherit what you're inheriting. I inherited from my parents who were part of Tom Brokaw's Greatest Generation. Have you heard of that book? Raise your hand if you heard of the book, Greatest Generation. Okay, well, not very many. You all need to get into it now. That's history. The Greatest Generation went through the recession, and we think we had a recession in 2008. I mean, we're talking about nothing, okay? So the Great Recession, World War II, where not only the soldiers went across, but the people in the country had to start manufacturing parachutes and clothes and stuff. They didn't have that all set up and ready to go. So everybody was involved in that, and our economy wasn't good. So they were problem solvers. My parents were problem solvers. We had a rule in our house, there was no transfer of blame and no excuses. My dad wouldn't put up with it. So if I started saying, well, you know, it wasn't my fault, it was somebody, just stop. It would just shut it down, okay? So what I'm saying to you is that you inherited a world that is a fault-finding world, okay? That's all we do. That's all the government does. That's all everybody does. That's all the sports writers do. People listen to radio talk show because they want to hear them find fault. And they can't make any money unless they find fault. Unless they can find an athlete that screwed it up. You know, there's no article. There's nothing to be said. So what I'm going to challenge you with is, who are you? Are you a complainer? Do you spend a lot of time complaining? Now, if you walk out of here and complain about me, I'm going to say you need to be a problem solver. Just don't come. You know, but the truth is, we get in the habit of doing it, don't we? We get in the habit. So I'm going to ask you to look in the mirror in your life this week. I want you to kind of grade yourself out. How many times did I complain? How many times did I find fault with somebody else? And unfortunately, you inherited that, but it's not a good thing. And for me, I had trouble yelling at umpires, truly. And I'd get people complain, say, man, why don't you stand up for your players? Haven't you got the guts to yell at the umpire? So what, you know, I mean, I just wasn't born with that type of stuff. Now, I can yell, And I have a bad temper. I don't as much anymore. I used to have a really bad temper, so I would do stuff that I shouldn't have done, and it just embarrassed myself and the family. But the truth is, it wasn't natural for me, and it's not natural for me to automatically just go off on an umpire. Now, I would go out there from time to time just to even it up. But, you know, some coaches just absolutely, they get a joy out of it. I mean, it's just natural for them. And it's really kind of foolish stuff. You know, really, what are you going to, I mean, how can you go off on an umpire for 3 minutes unless he really messed up? But and the other evidence that I'm a problem solver, I've been married 47 years to my high school sweetheart. I mean, you got to be a problem solver there, and she has to too. But if you're going to be a fault finder, marriages aren't going to last long. You know, so you might want to look at yourself and grade yourself out on that part of it. Let me tell a little bit of my story. I was brought up in Las Vegas, New Mexico, not Nevada, New Mexico. It's up in the northern central part of New Mexico, just on the southern part of the Rocky Mountains. It's up in the mountains, okay? And we were a town of around 8,000 people. We were 50 miles from Santa Fe, northeast of Santa Fe, so that might help you put this thing together. And it was a small town, and I've already talked to some people that are from small towns, so you know. In our town, if you could walk and chew gum, you could play sports. And I kind of had a natural gift for sports. I don't know why. My parents did. My parents were academic people. My dad was a PhD. My mother was a school teacher. And my older sister, she was a Phi Beta Kappa. I mean, she was into 4.0 stuff. It was just a terrible thing for me to have to follow because I was into athletics. And whatever it was, I had it. And I'm not, again, I'm just saying it worked for me. And so when I was a senior in high school, I got a chance to get quite a few scholarship offers and baseball offers. I waited until the spring because baseball was my really true love. And I went to University of New Mexico on a baseball scholarship. And that was where I wanted to go. And you think, New Mexico? For me, that was it. You know, I didn't know about Texas A&M or the other places. That was it for me. So I went there, and my thoughts were to either major, either be a coach, or to be, as I said, a sports journalist. And so I took a course, and I skipped out of some of the early English, and I took a writing course the first semester in school. And I got my only D I got in college. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. So I blame that teacher, because who I couldn't write for. It's why I'm in coaching. But it was very evident I don't need to be in that. And then later I've co-authored 3 books. So I had some writing talent, but I didn't write well for her. So I became invested and engaged in becoming a coach. My dream started out, I never, ever, ever, never thought about being a college coach. I wanted to be a high school football and baseball coach. And I thought I was reaching for the stars. I mean, I said, man, I'm just a small guy from a small school, and small town. But at any rate, I went to University of New Mexico. I got offered a contract by the Baltimore Orioles after my sophomore year. After my junior year, the first year of the draft, I was drafted by the Dodgers. And I waited until after my senior year and signed with the Mets. Now, I wasn't turning down millions of dollars, so don't misread what I'm saying. But I had opportunities to do those, and I said, I want to get my degree. And so I got a chance to play with the Mets. I came home in the off season and worked at a sporting goods store. And then after 3 years, I was released from playing baseball. I could have gotten picked up, but I said, you know, we had a little one. We were married. We had a little one, and so I said, you know, I'm going to settle in. And the only thing available in Albuquerque, New Mexico, was elementary physical education at Mission Elementary School in the inner city of Albuquerque. It was federally funded. It was the problem area. And so nobody wanted that job, but it was available. And I never thought about being an elementary PE teacher, never. I mean, I had to take the course in kinesiology. We had elementary physical education. But anyway, I fell in love with it. I liked it. You know, it's the first time I was ever called coach, and I liked that. But I went ahead and I went early and did the bus duty. I did the recess and noon hour, and then instead of having to do bus duty at the end, I could go on over to the University of New Mexico and help coach for free. Now, I got that job, a full-time job, and of course it's relative to the time. This is 1969. And so my pay as an full-time elementary physical education was $5,865. That's what I made for the year, okay? So I said, well, this is good. It's a start. And then the break came. I got, the next year I got a University of New Mexico Letterman's Association. I was awarded the 5th year scholarship thing so I could go get my master's. So I did my master's and I came out and helped with the baseball program again for free. And then I was going to go down in July of 1970. I was going down that afternoon, late July. I was going down that afternoon to sign up to be the junior high track and basketball coach. They didn't have football or baseball. So that's fine. I'm working my way up. And so I was going down that afternoon. That morning, a guy by the name of Dr. Dale Foster, who was assistant athletic director at the University of New Mexico, who had moved over to the University of Arizona that summer, he called me and he said, you know, Frank Sanson, who was a legendary coach at the University of Arizona, he'd announced his retirement. He said, this will be my last year. And Donnie Lee, the assistant coach, he started politicking for the job immediately, before the year even started. And Frank Sanson was from the old school. I mean, the hard-nosed rock school. And he fired him. And so they needed a guy. And so he called me, he said, hey, this is a 1-year temporary deal, and you're going to have to teach 2 classes in the business department and 4 classes of various activity classes, and then advanced first aid, I believe, in the kinesiology department. I said, all right, let's do it. Well, you know, it's a 1-year deal. We'll have to be looking after this year. So we packed up the U-Haul and took Ron, and Lynn and I went up there and found a real small condo, and so we started. I was getting $8,000. That was the salary to teach full-time and help Coach Sanson. And it was a great honor to be able to coach with him. I mean, it was a great honor. And of course, then he retired, as he said he was going to do. And Jerry Kendall got the head coaching job, which was a great choice. And then he made a great choice, and I applied for the assistant job, but I didn't have any credentials. And so he hired a longtime high school coach from Palo Verde High School in Tucson, who knew all the high school coaches. It was a good move for him. So I was left there, and you know, I'm getting ready to hit the road. You know, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And then because I taught well, they went ahead and gave me a salary for teaching, and so I could help stay there. It had nothing to do with the athletic department. So it was a plus, and I share this with you. It wasn't what I really wanted to do, but I did it, and I did as well as I could. I was 27 years old, and I mean, I'm humping, you know, and I'm staying 1 day ahead of the class, you know, particularly in the business part. So anyway, that turned out to be a real reminder to me that it might be good. Might always be good to do the best you can with whatever you got. You know, and my dad told me, he said, Mark, you're not in the right job unless you're a hair over your head. Now hold on to that thought, because that's true. I found it to be true. I was over my head there. You know, and I'm going, man, I don't know. But I found out I wanted to be a college coach then. Okay, I applied for the junior college job at Scottsdale Community College. I was a finalist and lost out on that one. So I said, man, you know, and then I got to thinking, you know, I'd like to be a 4-year college coach. But there was just Arizona State, UNLV, Reno, and then California. And I got offered the Santa Barbara job at Cal Santa Barbara, but I couldn't even think about affording to live over there. I mean, I didn't have that kind of money to even rent a house. So I started my vision. Had started tunneling in. You said, well, how did that happen? It was really through evaluation of myself and mostly observation of other coaches. And I said, why not me? And I said, can I do what they're doing? And that may be how you're going to scale in what you want to do. Can I do that? You may not think you can, but can you do that? And if you say it, and you say, well, why not me then? And I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. So at any rate, I go to Arizona, and I stayed there 5 years, and we won a national championship, and it was good. And then another acquaintance, I had met Ron Polk, who became in January the head coach at Mississippi State University, and had been a very successful coach at Georgia Southern University and was at Miami-Dade College. He and I had some mutual friends at New Mexico and Arizona. And I had spent a day with him when I was playing in the Florida State League with the Mets, and just shot the breeze with him. You know, he just came by, and we just talked, and never thinking that I might get a job from this guy. That was never in my thoughts. And so he called and said, I'd like you to be my assistant. I'm taking this job. We got to get this program turned and see if we can't make this thing happen. Of course, long story short, it did turn, and we did win quite a few championships, and they're still one of the top top jobs in baseball. So I went down there, didn't have to teach, and got a courtesy car, and got $18,000. And that was a good move. That was good. Now I bought a house for $32,000. You say, what kind of a house was that? It was a nice brick home. It had a couple bathrooms, 3 rooms, but in Mississippi, that's what you could do. Now that house, if it was in Santa Barbara, California, would value at around $700,000 probably. So it's all relative. So you look at it, you say, okay, you know, and so I stayed there. And then a guy came in to help run a tournament. And I've been doing that now, and I'm retired. Like I was at Florida State this last year, and I ran the tournament, the regional tournament for the NCAA. Tom Chandler, who was the coach at Texas A&M University, a Hall of Fame coach, he comes and he's going to run the tournament at Mississippi State. We're hosting a regional. And so I'm the sponsor of him. I have to help him along, and I kind of run it from our side while I'm coaching. And so I got to know Tom a little bit more. I had met him in a regional tournament down at Pan American when I was at Arizona in 1974. And we just matched, and he was a very, very congenial person, and so I got to talking to him, and you know, never thinking that might be someplace I would get to coach, just getting to know another coach. And so we would see each other from time to time, and then he came to Mississippi State, so I got the chance to work a week with him during our tournament. Tom Chandler calls me a year later, said, listen, I'm going to retire in either 1 year or 2 years here at A&M. And I'd like for you to be my assistant coach. I don't know if you can get the job, but it's going to be available. And I said, well, that'd be the only reason I would leave, because I've got a great job here. And so he gave me $21,000 in a car. And so I came here, and I told him when I came to visit, this was on a Sunday, you know, you got to do it kind of quietly. So I come in, and I said, I got to talk to Jackie Sherrill. And Jackie Sherrill had just been hired to be the coach. He was hired at mid-season, at mid-semester, okay? And Tom said, oh, no, you don't want to meet him. I think, you know. And Jackie Sherrill was a big-time guy, good guy. I'm not, you know, but he was way higher up on the level than I was, okay? So I said, no, I got to talk to him. And he said, okay. And so I went in, and I said, hey, Coach Sherrill, I just need 5 minutes. I want to know if you have anyone in mind that if Coach Chandler retires in this year or the next year, that you want to hire him. And, you know, he was a big guy. I think he may have had Casey Stengel ready or somebody. I mean, he knew those kind of people. So he said, no, I don't have anybody, but there's no guarantee you're going to get the job. Because that's all I need to know. And so we went ahead and gambled again. And we came to Texas A&M. Now, Texas A&M was exciting to me. I had applied and got offered the job at Vanderbilt when I was at Mississippi State. And you're going to do this. You're going to think, man, I need to go for this job. And then you may find it there's just gut feeling wasn't good. And along the way, and I'm going to share this with you, along the way, my growth as a Christian had really emerged, okay? And that was important to me. And so I had the presence of God with Jesus Christ. And it was all good for me, and I got a lot of direction from it. And so I'm sitting there, man, and I said, man, you know, I came back, I was speaking in Jackson, Mississippi, and Roy Kramer was the AD at Vanderbilt, who later became the Southeast Conference Commissioner. He flew in and met me in Jackson, so we'd keep it quiet. And so he said, I want you to come up for a visit. So I did, and he offered me the job. And they didn't have, it wasn't like it is now, they didn't have 13 full scholarships. At that time, that's what it was, 13 scholarships. And so if you were less than that, you were really going to battle without a lot of ammunition. And so I told him, I said, I'll take this job, but I got to have 13 scholarships. He said, I'll call you tomorrow. So I flew on home, and I sat at home, and I said, oh man, I hope he doesn't say yes. I just gut-wrenched inside. I said, man, this isn't the job for me. This isn't the right job. And so he called that morning, and he says, listen, I can give you 50% more in the next year, another 50%, then a full scholarship after the 4th year. That'll get you up. After 5 years, you'll be at 13. I said, I can't take the job. Yes, I don't have to take the job. You know, and so that's what it gets sometimes. If you don't have a feel, if it doesn't feel right, don't take it. But still, you got to get out on the edge too, okay? And so that's kind of what emerged there. And then, well, yeah, I stayed here 21 years, and then Bill Byrne came in, a great AD, and did a lot of things for this university and the coaches, but he wanted his own people. So he changed a lot of head coaches, and he fired me. We just won back-to-back Big 12 championships. Then he came in, and we had a whole new recruiting class in 2000, and we went to the super regionals in 2004, but we were 30 and 25 in 2005. So he had his opening, and he wanted his own person, and he made a great choice. Rob Childress is a great coach. But that's a prerogative of an athletic director, and it's something, if you want to get into coaching, that possibility is out there, okay? That possibility is out there. So, but here's the good story. The good story is that Sam Houston State needed a coach. And so I got that job, and they hadn't had a winning season forever. For like 10 years, 8 years. I think they'd only been in the conference tournament once in the last 12 years. So I said, man, well, this is going to be an unbelievable challenge. I had to fundraise 80% of the budget. I never had to do that here. I'd speak to the Aggie clubs and the Bulldog clubs and the Wildcat club, stuff like that. But I never had to knock on the door and say, hey, you got $100 so I can buy a base? I did it, Sam. I had to do that there. And then we had to get the program turned around, but we did. And it was, I told people when I retired, I said, man, you know, my history of coaching, it wouldn't have been complete if I hadn't got that Sam Houston job and seen that I could do that. It was terribly uplifting for me. It was just really uplifting and a great experience. So I've had a lot of blessings, truly a lot of blessings. You say, well, how did all these things happen? One of the things, and I'm going to share a few things with you, that I think are important. Life goes by moments, really. When you look at the big picture, 365 days and 68 years old and stuff, a lot of things that happen for me, it happened in moments, okay? Still, life, you keep going in life, but every once in a while you got to make a decision. Or something comes up and the door opens a little bit and you got to decide, am I going in that door or not? What do I need to do? And so philosophically, you need to start figuring out who you are. So you're ready, so you can be ready for your moment, okay? I always told our players we're going to practice for our moment because in baseball the ball will find you. And the absolute minute I put a pinch hitter in that can really hit but can't play defense, and then he's got to go out and play defense, the ball finds him. It hunts him down, it goes out there to him and says, oh man, I shouldn't have made that change. But the truth is we practice for our moment, whether it be bunting or man on second base or bases loaded, you're the pitcher, you got a 3-1 count, all of those things, they play in. So that was always my deal. On May 2nd, 1998, I'm here at Texas A&M. We played 53 games. There's 56 games in the season. We played 53. And so we've got a 3-game series with Baylor University. And it came down between Baylor and us. Texas wasn't going to be in it. Oklahoma wasn't going to be in it. Nebraska wasn't going to be in it. It just came down after all those games that it would be decided. And normally it's not decided on a head-on thing. It usually depends on if the Aggies win 2 and Longhorns lose 1 and Texas Tech beats Oklahoma. There was no formula. It was matchup head-to-head. So on Thursday before that series, and obviously it's for the championship, I did something I don't normally do. I normally meet with the players outside in our field, and we go over the practice plan for the day and any reminders for the day as we get ready to go. And so all week long I've been saying, man, it's a great gift. We get to match up with the team that we have to beat. We don't have to wait on anybody else. It's up to us. It'll fall on our shoulders. And on our watch, we'll decide who's going to be the winner. And so on that evening, I brought him in. I said, hey, listen. I brought him in the locker room, 5 minutes, and I said, I want you to do this for me. You've been in it long enough, and I've been in forever. In a 3-game series, it's probably going to come down to 4 or 5 plays over a 3-game series. And you've got to be ready for your moment, okay? Because it's going to come, and you have earned the opportunity to be ready for your moment, and you've practiced for that opportunity. So when you go to bed tonight, you lay down, you look up the ceiling. I want you to shut your eyes, and I want you to review a lot of your moments. Okay, you're the shortstop, ball in the hole. Plant here, or I'm going to plant with my right leg if it comes up. Keep my knee on the inside so I don't float over here and can't throw it. All of these things, I want you to see yourself and visualize yourself successfully. Whether it's on the mound, it's at the plate, or it's defensive. I don't want you to think about great plays. Don't start dreaming. Just see your plays. okay, and visualize them, because the ball's going to find you and the opportunity's going to come to plate. I don't know who's going to get the opportunities, but I want you to be ready for your moment. We open up, it's a split series. We play Baylor here at Olson Field on a Friday night, and we've got a packed house. We got like 8,000 people there. They all know the championship's online. Ryan Roop takes the ball. Ryan Roop would be in the major leagues in 3 years. Ryan Roop takes the ball and gives us a complete game. We win the first game. And then we had to, the next 2 games were going to be in Waco. So we had to get in the bus and go up there. But it was a little bit different, because when we got up there, we're going to face who would be named in 2 weeks the NCAA Player of the Year, Jason Jennings, and be a first-round draft pick in 2 weeks, and he would also be in the big leagues in 1 year. We didn't get out of the bus empty-handed, though, because we had a left-hander named Casey Fossum. Casey would also be a first-round draft pick in 2 weeks, and he also would be in the big leagues in a year and a half. So it was going to be a great pitching matchup. And they had a packed house, which for them was maybe 4,200 people. Good crowd. We go out there, and we've got the slimmest of slimmest 1-run leads in the 8th inning. Now, you got to understand, sometimes in sports, you're ahead, but you feel like you're behind. You can just see it slipping. And Jason Jennings, well, I won't ask you. You may not have seen. He's got thighs like this. Seriously, easily they're this size. I mean, he's huge. And he can throw 95, 96 and just pound you. And he terribly hard on the right-handers with a hard slider. So he was every bit what he was advertised to be. So we got this one. I got Casey Fossum. Casey Fossum is 145 pounds, and he's losing weight as he's out there. It's getting bad, you know, and it's not coming out as good. And I'm going, oh, man, you know, we got to pick up some more runs. And so we get up, and it just happens, the top of our order happens to be up in the 8th inning. And Jason Tyner, who would be a first-round draft pick the next year with Minnesota Twins, he grounds out to second base. We get a 4-3 ground ball, close play at first base. Steve Scarborough, our shortstop, he comes up and he rounds out a double. And I am absolutely pumped, because we got our best hitter, our 3-hole hitter, Craig Kuzmix, comes to the plate. And he's a left-handed hitter. He's a switch hitter, so he can go left on right and take away a little bit of the hard slider that Jason Jennings has. But Coach Steve Smith, the coach of Baylor, he decides to intentionally walk him, which was a good call. Because first base is open, sets up the double play, and our 4-hole hitter, John Sheshik, was the slowest of our 9 players. And so he was a made-to-order double play. And Jason Jennings had just been eating his lunch the whole game. Okay? So I'm watching, I'm in third base box, we're in the first base dugout, and I'm watching the intentional walk, 1, 2, and John Sheshik's in the on-deck circle. And swinging the bat. Now, every once in a while in a game, you can just feel this is the moment. This game's going to be decided. I mean, you can just feel it sometimes. And I felt that, and I think all the fans did too, because they were all on their feet. They were screaming. So I'm looking, and John's swinging. You know, he's getting got a couple bats, you know, getting loose. And I'm looking in there, and John and I, our eye contact locks in. Boom. He sets the bat down, and he goes, and I'm in the third base box. I go, oh, man, I hope so. I just hope you're right, John. And he gets up, and Jason Jennings throws him a 96-mile-an-hour fastball, and he drives it off the center field fence. And he comes headfirst sliding, and he was slow. But the center fielder misplayed a little bit off the wall, the bounce. And so John decides he's pumped because we scored the run. And so he's going to head first slide into third base, you know. And I'm standing down there. I'm going, get down, get down. And the ball's coming in, and it hits him in the back and ricochets off, and he goes on in the score. And we become Big 12 champions. So it wasn't just because John Sheshik had his moment, but he wanted his moment, and he identified his moment, and he went through the door. He didn't flinch. He didn't buckle. He didn't say, oh, man, God, why'd you put me here? This is tough. You know, the game's on the line. He didn't say that. He said, I want that moment. I practiced for this moment. And so what I'm saying to you is you need to be prepared for moments, okay? I see guys that aren't, and gals that aren't prepared, and so they don't take it, and they look back and say, man, I should have done that. So philosophically, you need to start figuring out who you are and what you want to do. Now, you may not know exactly. I didn't talk to anybody who knew exactly what they want to do. I talked to about 7. Nobody knows exactly, and I didn't know exactly when I was your age. But I was starting to funnel it down. But I knew pretty much who I wanted to be, what type of person I wanted to be, okay, and what I thought the cause would be and whether it be worth my time to do it. Let me just tell you one danger. Everyone wants to be successful, okay? And that's a dangerous thing, okay? Because success is graded out by other people, okay? In coaching, I mean, it's graded out by the fans, by the sports media, by the newspapers. You know, I mean, everyone grades out whether you did well or not, whether you're successful or not. And sometimes I do a great job of coaching, and we lose. And other times I do a bad job of coaching, and we win. That's the nature of the game. Sometimes the ball just doesn't roll right. It's what it is in athletics. And believe it or not, sometimes our athletes aren't ready to play because they broke up with the girlfriend the night before, or the grandmother passed away. I averaged about 2 grandparents passing away every year that I was in coaching. And then I had about every 4 years, somebody's folks would divorce as soon as he left home. And then about every year and a half, 1.5, one of my players would have one of their high school buddies get in a car wreck. Sometimes they would die, sometimes they wouldn't, but they'd have to leave practice and go home. So they have all kinds of issues too. They're just gifted in playing sports, but they're just like the rest of us. I mean, sometimes we think, well, that shouldn't bother them, they're studs. And no, they're just like you guys, you know, and some of you are athletes, you know that. So what I tried to do is not get, you know, this success thing is very narrow, and it's non-creative. When you get hung up in somebody else's, this is the goal and this is what you have to have this salary, you have to have this title, you have to have this acknowledgement, this recognition, you have to have this amount of money, you got to have this car, and you got to have this house. You know, you can get hung up and try to drive that thing. It's not a good road to go down, okay? So what I kind of decided fairly on, I wasn't going to let the fans decide if I had done well or not. I wanted to control as much as I control and then just let it go. So there were a lot of uncontrollable variances involved. So what I kind of tried to do, I came up with this thing, pursuing excellence with honor. That's kind of what I went with, because excellence was all up to me, what I thought was excellent for me. And I knew what I was capable of, and I knew if I was courageous enough, I could go through some doors. And I knew I was going to work and learn and do all those things there. So trying to pursue, that means to go after this excellent thing. I wanted to be excellent. I didn't want anybody else to grade whether we won or lost. I didn't want the one-loss record to define me. Now, it does, but I didn't want to define me personally. I wasn't going to get hung up with that. Now, I did from time to time, of course. And I wanted to win championships and all those things, but nonetheless, I went with that, and then I put that with honor on there, and I want you to hear that, okay? I want every one of you to hear that, because that's going to be an issue for you. I don't care what occupation you get into. It's on the front pages of papers every day. It was in the paper today. White-collar crime is out there, and it's absolutely rampant right now. That good people decide to take shortcuts or take an easier route that's not available to everybody else unless they want to do wrong to try to get right. So what I'm going to say is integrity ought to be an issue for you. It's going to be. You're going to have to decide. You need to decide right now whether you're going to be a person of integrity. You need to decide if your ethics are going to be good, and you need to decide about your moral fiber and what kind of character you're going to bring to the table every single day. If you go through the door, what are you bringing? What do you got to bring? And whether you'll compromise yourself. Now, I don't know any coach that started out with the thought, I'm going to be a cheater. I know a lot of coaches that cheat, but there are just as many business people, because you read about them in the paper. You read about them all day. You know, I just read about the teachers in El Paso that were cheating on the tests for the kids. You know, they're going to indict those people. But that's a lack of character. It's lack of integrity. But we put pressure on people. That coaches have a tremendous amount of pressure. I mean, you think it was life and death whether we won a ball game or not. I mean, I've seen people just go off. I say, you know, it's important to me. I'm a competitor. I don't like anyone to beat me. I don't. But you know, there's got to be some perspective in that. So the with honor is something you're going to be challenged with. What I'm going to say to you, you're going to have to decide who you want to be, okay? What type of person you want to be. My folks told me 3 things when I left home. This is August 1963. About the middle of August, I was getting ready the next day. I was leaving the University of New Mexico. They brought me in. They said, Mark, we need to talk to you in the living room. And that was never a good place to go talk, because the living room was off limits. It was always just for the guests that came in, so it was always clean. So when they took me in the living room, it usually wasn't going to be good. But they said, Mark, if you want to be successful, you need to do these 3 things. The first thing you need to do, if you want to be successful, you hang around good folks. You're going to be making new friends. None of your friends are going to the University of New Mexico. All these guys you've been hanging around since elementary school, they're not going, okay? They're going somewhere else. So you're going to have to make new friends. You pick out the good ones, okay? You hang around with good people. And my mother said, you may not be one of them yet, but you hang around them long enough, you will be. And then they said the next thing, if you want to be successful, you not only hang around good people, but you hang around good places. In Las Vegas, New Mexico, Joe's Ringside Bar and Grill, you never go there on Saturday night. People are getting knifed there. I mean, I'd read about it in the paper. I never went there, never. And West Las Vegas wasn't a good place to hang out either. I snuck over there a few times. But the truth is, every town, every hamlet, every city, every metroplex, every urban area, they got good places and bad places. It wasn't just in Las Vegas where there was a couple of bad places. Everywhere I've lived, and I've lived all over the country, they've got good places and bad places. You hang around the good places, okay? And then the third thing, they say, if you want to be successful, you not only hang around good people and good places, you hang around with God. We've been taking you to church. We've been going to church since you could walk. You developed a relationship. And I want you to hold on to that relationship. And if you're hanging around people and places that God can't go with you, you're hanging around the wrong places. And you develop that faith that you got. You go ahead and seek God's presence. And I did that. And truly, truly, I can only tell you that God has directed my life since I was 21. At 12, I went before the church, but at 21, I rededicated my life. I said, I need something else. I was getting ready to go in the Army. The Vietnam War was on, and I wasn't hitting very good, and I was going to get married. There were all kinds of things on my plate. But it made a difference in my life, so that's part of my story that I have to share with you. What I want to say this to you, and my time's running short, okay? One of the critical things I want to say to you is that you have to learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. You need to write that down. Okay, if you don't know that, you need to write that down because you're going to be challenged. I promise you, you're going to be challenged. And you're saying, man, I don't want to get on the edge. I don't want to get on the edge. For growth to take place in you, if you want to take the restrictions off of who you are right now and you want to grow, you've got to learn to get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Okay? You've got to risk. You've got to get out there. Okay? So I want to encourage you in that area to step out and make it happen. And I want you to get this passion. If you find out what you like, see if you can't grow a passion. And typically what you do is you have a passion, a comfort zone, and then it has a good cause. And when it has a good cause, then you unite it and you fall in love with it eventually. You may not be in love with anything yet. Okay? You have an interest, but seek it out. Seek it out and keep pushing, keep pursuing it so that you can figure it out and make things happen. What it has to be strong enough that it can beat adversity. Because I'm going to tell you, if you'll do this, if you'll get uncomfortable, the uncomfortable adversity is going to show up. It's going to challenge you. If you get out of the middle of that circle, adversity is going to come get you. Okay? And adversity is a good thing. Adversity can make you better. Okay? It always does. I have teams right here, they're playing at this level here, we lose 5 games in a row. It just stinks it up. But when we come out of it, we always come out higher than the level we were in before we went in it. Always. I promise you, if you'll face adversity, things will work out good. Okay? Martin Luther King says on adversity, he says, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in times of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in time of conflict and controversy. How do you stand when Mr. Adversity shows up at your house? Don't back off something. Stand up and get it taken care of. Have an attitude that good things will happen, okay? And the attitude all starts with your thoughts. There's a little saying, it says, be careful of your thoughts because they're going to become a body language. We communicate with our body language, don't we? And be careful of your body language because it's going to become words. And pretty soon your words, you be careful of those because they're going to become actions. And be careful of your actions because they'll become habits. And be careful of your habits, they're going to become your character. And be careful of your character, it's going to become your destiny. It's a done deal. It's over. And it all goes back to your thoughts, what you're putting in your head, who you want to be, whether you're going to be a positive person, okay? And then you act out the role. Don't be a reactor to life's adversity, okay? People come in and say, I'm in a bad mood today. I say, well, what happened? I got up on the wrong side of the bed. Or a car got my parking space, and I had to drive around. And it's controlled by a little adversity in that morning. And it's a done deal. That day's over, okay? Don't be a reactor. Don't let somebody make you into a bad day, make you into a bad person. Be an actor. Act out the role you want to be. You may not be that person, but act it out. Now, we can't always practice like major leaguers, but we can act like major leaguers. Let's have a little class. Let's play in the role. Let's get it going and make it happen. I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to say this. Life's not a destination. It's in the journey. If you're looking for a destination, it's not going to happen, okay? You may win a championship, but, you know, the dog's still got to be fed tomorrow, still got to mow the grass, you still got to do all the other stuff. It's another day. I promise you. And I've won national champion, won Olympic medal winners in Pan American Games, all those things there, and it isn't the answer. So I'm going to say this. Happiness determines success. And a lot of people think, you know, if I work real hard and then I get success, then I can be happy. But you got to be happy in the journey. Okay? You've got to find ways to be happy. There's a little saying, life isn't always about getting through the storms. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. You see, I like that. Because you're handling the adversity, the rainstorms, you're still dancing in the rain, man. You just keep bringing it. Keep bringing it. Okay? So you got to be happy in what you choose to do. There's got to be some joy in your journey as you go forward, try to make it happen. John Ruskin says the highest reward for your toil is not what you get from it, but it's what you become by it. Okay? So you work real hard and you don't get where you wanted to get. You say, man, I wasted all that time. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You became a better person. You learned how to work. You learned how to get the skill done. So just keep punching away. Just keep on keeping on and make it happen. I'll finish with this. Belief. Well, no one eventually, and you all may be at it now, you'll try to get a job and say, well, you don't have enough experience. And so, you know, that's why I'm trying to get a job so I can get experience. You've got to believe eventually when no one else does. You've got to believe, okay? So what I'm going to encourage you to do, you've got to courage it up. You've got to man up. And you've got to say, I can do it. Why not me? I can pull this off. And then you got to go out and do it, and you got to believe. And the best story I've ever heard, it's a true story. And it happened in May of 1956 when all the world-class milers were trying to break the 4-minute mile barrier. I mean, they were 4:10, 4:07, 4:13, and they couldn't do it. And then one day, in Britain, on a wet day, on a cold day, no wind, Roger Bannister runs a 4-minute mile barrier in 3.596. He breaks, and it's world-class news. I mean, it's all over the world. Bannister does the impossible. It was impossible because of the physiologists and the doctors, the scientists all said it's humanly impossible. It would be like you and I saying, can you run a 7-second 100? So, are you kidding? There's no way. There's no way that can happen. Or can you high jump 10 feet? No, it's not going to happen. Well, that's what they were saying about the 4-minute mile barrier. They said you can't get enough oxygen in. The blood can't get it out there to the muscles so they can contract and make this thing happen. He breaks it, and it's a great story, but that's not the story. Within 1 month, now you got to remember, this has been going on for years. Within 1 month, John Landy breaks the 4-minute mile barrier. Within that year, 5 different times, the 4-minute mile barrier is broken. And so they went back, they said, well, what kind of oxygen do we have that year? Nike came up with a new shoe. No. A new track. They got rid of the cinder tracks. No. He untapped the power of belief. So I'm going to say to you, hold on to the power of belief. It's going to be your strongest tool that you say, I can do this. No one else believes I can, but I know. I may stumble a little bit, but I'll pick it back up and I can make this thing happen. Nelson Mandela, is the last thing, says, as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give permission for others to do the same thing. Every day, your calling, your gift with any group of people working towards a common goal has to be to lift them up, encourage them, and let your light shine. So when things get dark, you cannot be the person that curses the darkness. You've got to be the person that lights the candle. Every day, you be a light for the person next to you. All right, my time's up, and you all have given me great eye contact. I'm going to stay if you have questions. There were a lot of personal questions that were asked. You know, what was my greatest moment or something like that. The questions
you sent to me, I gave you.
Yeah, I got to see those. But if you have other questions, that's fine. So if you need to go, I will not be offended. If you want to stay, you can stay. I'll stay as long as you all want me to stay. Thanks for coming today.